I think the answer to their problem is robots. They need robots, Paul.
There you
robots
go.
won't care. They do the reset.
Sure.
Anyway.
Wait, what? Robots? Isn't that a little far-fetched?
There's sci-fi, and then there's come on. What?
Yeah, come on.
Robots.
Singularity that allows them to go back in time, I can believe. But robots...
I guess... Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We're here today talking about The Lazarus Project, Season 1, Episode 3. We open with a flashback to 2017. A Lazarus Project agent, who we learn is named Janet, takes her pregnancy test at work. She learns she's pregnant and non-verbally shares the good news with her partner Revov, who is a fellow agent at this point. But is this good news? I think the episode has a pretty definitive answer for that. We end back in the present day. Janet has made a nuclear detonator for George. He tests it by turning it on. He looks menacingly at the camera. Credits. George seems intent on bringing back Sarah by forcing a Lazarus Project reset. Paul!
Yes?
What'd you think of Episode 3?
I enjoyed it. I'm not all fussy about details.
I liked it too, by the way, but we'll talk about my issues with it. Okay, go ahead.
But particularly, though, that was the thing that, for me, made me want to, that I wanted other people to see, basically, is poor Janet's experience of having birthed so much. I mean, I'd like to see an actual tally of how many kids he would have actually had. It's at least 20, but
easily dozens.
Easily dozens. Yeah, it's to the point where she's just like, the baby. She does say it's like, stronger connections to Groundhog Day than anything else with her suicide ride, and
Although, whereas in the Groundhog Day it was Bill Murray's series of suicide attempts are kind of played for laughs a little bit. Obviously, this is not. This is not
definitely not. Yeah,
I really enjoy the moral ambiguity of the characters in this show. I still like George. Even though he's plotting the destruction of the planet, I'm like,
like Revov said, actually, I've killed very few people. Thanks to you guys.
right. Yeah, I could see Revov's point when he questions the entire purpose of the Lazarus Project.
Yes.
If humanity keeps attempting to destroy itself, then who are we to keep propping it up, and at what cost?
You and I, don't believe in, these sort of metaphysical, the world wants to destroy us.
Right.
Fuck the world.
Yeah. No, it's an uncaring universe. I get that. Yeah. But in terms of the planet itself would go on. It's the humans on it that I think the Lazarus Project is trying to save. And so humanity keeps finding ways to bump itself off. And then the Lazarus Project is like, reset. All right, we need to kill that guy so he doesn't start a war.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the point is who are we? What we keep at what cost? We are really hurting ourselves and perhaps just untold countless other folks through this process. And he wants to know more about what's behind it. And so I think it's fun that's one of the essential questions in this show is the Lazarus Project actually a good thing?
Yes. And something I might not have appreciated the first couple of times that I saw it. But, Ross did not do them any favors when he spared, he let the bomb go on in order to save Archie. It's like,
right?
It just meant that, Janet was going to suffer one more time, at least.
That's a great point. If, you would think he might have had those facts as well, right? He would have known that.
Oh, I think he knows, but he's like, hey, I got to get my girlfriend back.
Right, he did the math. And he's like, well, obviously on my scale, Archie, more important.
Yeah.
at this point, I do hope George actually goes through with his plan. I know you're ahead of this, and you know already, but
Yes, I do know.
You know, what I want is for him to do the plan, and then we see the consequences of it. I think there's a version of this story where Archie tracks him down at the last second, and she like appeals to his humanity, and like, you have to say goodbye to Sarah. Let go, or whatever. You know what I mean? Something like that. And he's like, you're right. But I think I want to see the version of this story where George resets the timeline. Because among other things, I want to see how the show redeems this character. I mean, if that's the direction the show's taking. I do feel like this show is swimming in the waters of everyone's got, no one's perfect. No one in the show is going to be a perfect person. So even though,
I don't, Shiv, I guess Shiv encouraged you, or he was willing to let George beat up on that, that.
Well, we also know that Shiv is the torturer. Right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Archie didn't torture anybody. No,
you're right. Archie is just cried. At the moment,
yes,
I would agree that at the moment, Archie is the moral center of the show.
Yeah.
I feel like, but there's time.
Yeah. You wouldn't put any money on it, huh?
Well, I am interested. I assume that's a mystery box that's going to get revealed over time. How does this system work? Wes tells her assistant to make a call, and they're and Revov is asked, like, are we talking aliens? Are we talking guys in suits? Like, how does this system work? That question is interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I think we mentioned this maybe once before, but Counterpart, where you have the mystery people voices on the phone.
That's true, you did. I believe that Wes was willing to die.
I agree.
Keep that secret, I don't think he would have gained anything. She is a believer
in whatever this process is. She's not doing it for a paycheck.
Pretty crappy if she was like, no, everybody else has to die, but not me.
Yeah. Wait, you killed my assistant? Yeah. All right, fine. Here's the codes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so
I was gonna fire her anyway.
So it is interesting, and who knows on the theory crafting. I feel like I hope that when we eventually learn what the process is, that it's a fairly simple answer. That it's not like a 10-step thing where it's like, oh, there's a guy. And it just so happens that he can whatever, and so we just call him, and he goes, all right, let me switch time back. Boop. We'll see what the ultimate system is, because obviously, if I had to guess, much like Counterpart, where once the bad guys find out how the process works, they go, oh, well, let's just go to the source and try to screw the things up from there. So my guess is once somebody like a Revov finds out, oh, that's the ultimate, power. That's the ultimate thing that's making this work. Let's go after that. And I feel like that's probably where eventually the show heads.
Who knows? They're
keeping it secret for a reason, is what I'm saying. But this is probably my least favorite of the 3 episodes for a couple of reasons. And it's more about me than it is about the show, because the show itself, as I say, it's got compelling characters. You can feel the trauma in this episode. And Janet Revov.
I would suggest too, even before you've said it, that the makers of the show may be so concentrated on getting their time ducks in a row that some facts they're like, we don't know what the answer to that question is.
Right? No, agreed.
Or one of those situations is like, if A just talked to B, where would the plot be?
Exactly, and you're right. Exactly, and so the fact that their emotional unraveling of these two characters is totally believable. That all works. I would rather have that at the expense of some like loosey-goosey plot elements than the reverse, where like, oh, they tightened that plot up great, and nothing happened. You're like, oh, okay. But I'll say that it's Revov and Janet just forge ahead, knowing that there's this giant flashing light, like danger, this is risky, and they're like, let's do it. So I mean, they're both agents. They're not teenagers or raw recruits. They're well-informed adults, essentially.
Right.
And we learn there's a company policy about pregnancy.
Yes.
And it's easy to see why that's a policy. Like there's some company policies you can be like, I don't know, what is that like a percentage?
Well,
this is a pretty good reason.
I think perhaps they've never had that many resets.
It's a good point that knowing how many resets they've had would be instructive. Like, oh God, one thing we were talking off air was like how old is this program?
Right.
And I think we both agreed that this is probably a post World War II program.
At least. Yeah.
And so it hasn't been around forever. It's a few decades. We know it's been around since 9/11 at least, but so it goes back into the 90s, maybe the 80s. That's probably where it starts, somewhere in there. So in that time, how many years have been reset? Have you gone through a decade, for instance, where there was no reset? You're like, oh, well, who cares? I forgot about this place.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then it does make more sense. Like, you might take risks like, hey, let's have a kid and hope that we don't get a reset. But just based on the number of resets that we've seen, it's like it seems like a terrible idea. And so they do it. They go ahead and have a kid, and she gives birth shortly before July 1st, and they're just crossing their fingers that there's no reset. And of course, because that's a cool plot, there's a reset.
And I'm wondering, if if you decided, you know what, I've done enough working for the institution, if you can say, okay, can you take this thing away from me so I don't know?
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't think that's the case.
I think you're right. I think once you learn the ability, it seems like you probably have it from then on, whether you're working for the company or not.
Right. So,
Revov is a good example. Revov's not working for the company anymore, but he certainly is aware of the resets.
Right. And, she didn't state it, and perhaps, she could have. But since they're both active agents, then neither of their lives are guaranteed.
But they have this kid, the reset happens, they lose the kid and the pregnancy.
Right.
And so now they try again, but this time they make it worse because they delay the pregnancy. So she gets pregnant later, meaning that during the series, this giant series of 2018 resets, she's constantly giving birth, raising an infant, resetting, losing the infant, giving birth, repeat. And as you say, it just basically drives her crazy. I mean, I don't know if guys are depressed at least. I mean, I heard of adoption. I don't know. Like, anyway, it's just I feel empathy for them because they are in terrible trauma.
Under that
system, so stupid.
And if they decided to adopt, they could have been like, there's a reset. You know what? Maybe that kid over there. That kid, if they didn't it's like, this one's kind of colicky. Let's get another baby.
That actually becomes the reason that they want to reset.
Could you? We kind of a shitty thing to do to
Jerry's not
to get rid of the kid.
Oh man. Anyway, so the whole time I just couldn't shake the idea of like, God, they're just being stupid. But I get it, like, hey, love conquers all and other whatever, yes, I get.
And you could say perhaps that Archie felt like she, didn't want to sacrifice that. It's like, I still want to have a baby even though I'm in this terrible position. You'd think the argument would actually be you can't have a baby while you're doing this. But then if you're always going to have this ability, then it's only like, you could only have a baby when you can't do anything to stop it. When you can't do anything to fuck up everything else. So it's like, it's like we're not going to let you in the building now to complain.
It's a terrible cost of doing business, but they anyway. But so there was that. I couldn't shake that feeling of like, come on, guys, come on. But then the second problem I had with this episode is the security at the Lazarus Project. It just seems way too casual. It's like George has multiple one-on-one conversations with Revov. Yeah. He creates a YouTube account at work and uses it to warn the bad guys. Oh, he put anonymous, so you'll never figure out who it is. He unexpectedly just flies off to Barcelona, sits in his apartment testing his new detonator. I mean, surely, and maybe they are. The thing is, this and I don't. But, I'm hoping in the back of my brain that surely the Lazarus Project is watching this guy. Like, oh, they're letting him, give him all the rope to hang himself with, because this new recruit who just lost a loved one, something the agency is very familiar with, surely they wouldn't just assume he's on the team. Do they even have security badges? I mean, there's better security at a Home Depot. This place is, it's not a lockdown place. Let's put it that way. Like, yikes.
I think, to me, this suggests that it's a small group.
They don't trust people coming in because then they have to
and so they don't have the ability to have support staff that would, it's like, I'm sure what you would think, it's like if they just said, hey, we should have some sort of, computer system that robs everybody. Hey, George, you're a programmer. Why don't you make a security program that watches everybody?
Yep. I think
I'll get right on that.
I'll get right on that after I make this YouTube account. Hopefully he subscribed to the Dork Lords. I'll say that. But anyway, I think the answer to their problem is robots. They need robots, Paul.
There you
robots
go.
Won't care. They do the reset.
Sure.
Anyway.
Wait, what? Robots? Isn't that a little far-fetched?
There's sci-fi and then there's, come on. What?
Yeah, come on.
Robots.
Singularity that allows them to go back in time, I can believe. But robots...
I mean, I guess... ultimately... I guess as I mentioned, I do want to see what happens when he crosses this moral line and causes this explosion. So, but I would like, I think, the Lazarus folks to add, a little more resistance. They've got some major HR problems, basically.
As I suggested to you, they haven't had a problem like this yet. Revov, he didn't turn bad until he turned bad. He didn't work against them until he was like, okay, now tell me now where these people are.
That's a great point that he didn't secretly turn bad.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Okay. He was with the program until he wasn't.
And Janet, she quit. She didn't, work behind the scenes to mess anything up, And
Archie just kept working. Well,
Archie just was like, well, please, I beg you to do it. You're not going to do it? Okay, I'll live. George was the innovator. It takes a tech bro to say,
exactly.
Maybe I could subvert you I can hack you guys,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So he's been given a lot of leash. Yes. Maybe a little too much. Right. I'm just like, come on, guys. This is a pretty high stakes organization. You're like, come and go as you please.
Yeah. So at least by the season's end, Wes maybe should come up with a manual.
Yep. Agreed. I need you to read it. I need you to sign here that you read the manual. And you get to do it every year that we reset. So So those are just, I assume, kind of nitpicks essentially, but they were on my brain, so I was thinking.
Yes.
But yeah, generally speaking, I do appreciate that this show is going to a place that a lot of shows of this type don't. In that it's, normally the Lazarus Project would be, hey, we're the unquestioned good guys. Here's your hero. He's fighting against a villain, and he's probably going to save the day. Here, it's like, oh wait, okay, no. There's a lot of questions as to what's happening, why it's happening, is it good it's happening. So that's all great. That's good stuff. I like it. So we'll be back talking about episode 4. Thank you as always, Paul. Appreciate it, good sir.
No problem.
And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.